The Ravens are set to host Texas wide receiver prospect Xavier Worthy on a coveted top 30 visit in Baltimore.
And Sarah, that's coming off his record-breaking 40-yard dash last weekend in Indianapolis. So this guy is being talked about right now. And we're going to take a look at Worthy's potential fit and also discuss why, based on pass catchers that he's shown interest in the past, why Lamar Jackson might love this pick for Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Ellison alongside Bobby Trossett. It is Tuesday, March 5th, and this is your morning Ravens update from Inside the Vault, presented by our Patreon title sponsor, Brandon Lindsay.
Okay, so could the Ravens be looking to retool at running back in the NFL draft? Well, probably at some point they will be, but we're going to take a look at Mel Kiper's top 10 prospect list and Michigan's Blake Corum, talking about the potential of landing with the Ravens. Remember, he went to St. Francis. Both those things still to come.
Plus, Eagles legend Jason Kelce, he calls it a career. And was Denver's Russell Wilson acquisition, Bobby, was it the worst trade in NFL history? Because they just cut him with a whole lot of dead money. So we're going to dive into that.
Wow, we have a lot of notes on that coming up. So we have all that and more still to come. Thanks for waking up with the Morning Vault, where you get the most important Ravens news and our opinions sprinkled in, as always, in about 30 minutes. So Xavier Worthy, as we discussed during our Monday live stream, go check that out if you haven't already done so. Steve Smith Sr. had some good stuff on some prospects, specifically, particularly Keon Coleman. But Xavier stole the show, Sarah, because he broke the record, the 40-yard dash NFL Combine record. So the dude was absolutely flying. Now the Ravens are going to look to, according to Ryan Fowler, actually host him, to your point, on a coveted top 30 visit. And I thought you kind of shed some light as before we went on, just in terms of how the Ravens might view this type of visit too.
Well, so it's not every day that we'll lead with there, because there's so many reports. Ravens met this person, Ravens interviewed this person. Well, not all interviews are equal, right? So you hear that, you would hear a million combine guys, right? They go up and do their interview, and you have a bunch of local guys. Hey, did you meet with the Ravens? Hey, did you meet with the Texans? Hey, did you meet with the Vikings? And just on and on and on and on and on. That's it's one of the staple questions. And so at the combine, though, yeah, of course they did. I think they have 150. Something crazy. Tons of visits.
Yeah.
You get lots of visits at the Senior Bowl. You'll get visits on pro days, all that kind of stuff. And it's you just expect them. But each NFL team only gets 30 where they can actually bring them in. Right. And that one, I think, now it doesn't mean for sure they're going to pick somebody, because you never know how the board's going to fall. But I remember Eric DeCosta, he has said it a couple of times. He was so happy that nobody ever found out, right, that the Ravens had Lamar Jackson in for one of these top 30 visits. They wanted, everybody to feel like, hey, the Ravens aren't going to go after a quarterback and feel safe about it. So there's always some sort of behind the scenes strategy. Sometimes it's good to get a visit out. Sometimes it's not. But yeah, this one takes on a little bit more meaning in my eyes when it's a top 30 visit coming to Baltimore and they're flying him in.
So remember, he set the NFL scouting combine record just over the weekend with a 4.21 second 40-yard dash. Here's how it sounded on NFL Network.
Take your time, man. You're chasing a record. Don't rush this thing here.
An unofficial 4.25 in his first run, and he's going to run it again to try and get John Ross's 4.22. Here it goes. Oh!
Keep going. He might just keep running right out of the stadium.
The roar of the crowd. A 4.22 unofficial. John Ross, wherever you are. Caleb Williams is there, and Stacey Dale's taken away.
Woo! I'm not going to talk. You go ahead.
Hold on, Ty.
That's right. Man, I think you need to talk for a second, Stacey.
Man, it's crazy. I watched it come by my whole life. As a kid, seeing John Ross run that, man, I never thought I'd be able to be on the stage and do that.
So
That is so fun. I love that the whole stadium knew what was at stake, right? So when they see the numbers go up, it's like, oh, and I don't even know how many fans are there, right? Like so
Not
much
many.
of it is front office people. So to have the whole stadium kind of go crazy, what a moment for him.
That was tremendous. EDC's reaction just as tremendous up in the booth with his binoculars. Like, am I seeing what I think I just saw? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you did. And John Ross, you heard that name mentioned. He held the record previously. So Xavier gets in a 10th of a second, Sarah, in front of John Ross for the fastest 40 time in combine history. There's other names on this list as well, like Chris Johnson that jumps out at you. I'm looking at the fastest times. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 total players on this list compiled by Adam Schefter. And there's nobody that necessarily sticks out aside from Chris Johnson as somebody who became like a big time NFL player. Who knows if Henry Ruggs doesn't make that horrific decision in the wee hours of the Las Vegas night, which ended up killing a woman and her dog because of his intoxication. Maybe he ends up being in that category. But so it's not, what I'm saying is it's not guaranteed. And like I said during the live stream, I hope for his sake, Xavier's sake, right, history doesn't repeat itself, especially now that we know that the Ravens are going to be looking at him.
Yeah, and so we just wanted to dig in a little bit more because on yesterday's Vault, we talked more about Keon Coleman and AD Mitchell and all that. And we did mention Xavier, but didn't go deep into it. So I kind of wanted to read the write-up for him from Daniel Jeremiah. And I just pay attention to the comp at the end, okay, the player that he comps to. So here's Daniel Jeremiah. Worthy has average height and a very lean frame. You'd expect that from a speedster, right? Okay, this guy's a burner, I'm telling you. Anyway, okay, goes on and says, he is extremely twitchy and can take the top off the defense. He plays inside and outside. He was used in a variety of ways at Texas, but he is at his best on double moves, shot plays, and pure takeoffs. He is dynamic off the line and can tap into a second and third gear down the field. He is also crispy out of the break and when asked to work back downfield. His hands have been spotty over his career, but he's been much more reliable this past fall than he had been before. After the catch, he has a jetpack on his back. He explodes away from defenders and racks up big plays. Overall, Worthy seems like a taller version of, here we go, Hollywood Brown. Then he says this, you can, and then puts this in italics, feel his speed in every game. So anyway, Bobby, it just made me think Hollywood Brown, Lamar Jackson connected. They had chemistry. We've talked about how Zay Flowers, definitely a more physical player than Hollywood Brown, but kind of what we're talking about right here, right? Like not the biggest receiver in the world, certainly twitchy, fast, hard to catch. And so kind of like in this kind of realm of the type of receivers he's had a lot of chemistry with. And here we go. This type of guy is coming in for a top 30 visit.
Yeah, just for a different perspective along these same lines of analysis work, Lance Zierlein had this to say. So you got DJ saying that. Here's Lance Zierlein. Worthy's draft slotting could come down to draft room debates weighing his elite speed versus his thin frame. And he is thin.
Yeah.
Which is why he's able to fly down the line off the break. He literally looked like Usain Bolt out there. Much shorter, but it was absurd. Worthy will find separation if
go that far. Usain Bolt.
He was like flying down the line. Worthy will find separate. I guess I just disrespected the greatest sprinter of all time. Worthy will find separation if allowed to explore vertically or across the hashes against man coverage, but he lacks play strength and release quickness to defeat a quality NFL press. His quick strike potential adds an element of danger over the top and should open wider windows for teammates to work into. This is what catches me right here. He lacks the physical tools to catch when contested and needs to prove he can hold up to a more physical brand of football. Worthy is a niche prospect for teams looking to add a legit field stretcher, but areas of concern could create a wider gap between the ceiling and floor. I just wanted to read that for a different perspective. And that gives me pause because of the physical brand of football that he has questions. And this is in Lance's eyes. The physical brand of football that there's questions around whether or not he can hang, and being unable. Does he have the physical tools to catch when contested? He may not be asked to do that with the Ravens based on what they're running, based on what they asked Zay to do. But those are boxes that I think Zay Flowers checks. Can we agree on? Right?
Yeah, no, Zay is not afraid of contact. He's not afraid of contact. Yeah.
And that's the difference.
And that was the knock that when Hollywood was in Baltimore, it was like he would, granted, when he did this, he was coming off that, I believe, foot injury. And so he would drop to the ground for sure when defenders were coming. Yeah.
Yes.
But
I think naturally, Hollywood is more shifty and willing to run around you and able to run around you and can do so effectively. Didn't have a ton of yak during his time in Baltimore, whereas Zay can do both. He can do that shiftiness-wise, but he has the sturdiness and the build to run through you, and he is willing to do so.
Yeah, for sure. And so kind of like, though, yeah, listen, I am not here to like argue that Worthy for sure is going to become like this great NFL player. As you noted, many of the speedsters didn't become that. That being said, like the overall trend though, that like kind of was pointing to, and Spencer Schultz pointed this out because he was like,
this is really interesting.
Yeah. So he was pointing out how Worthy does fit the mold of wide receivers that Lamar has liked in the past. And so somebody had asked him to go deeper into that. And he goes, well, the guys that we know that Lamar was reportedly in on, right? Where we found out that like Lamar was like, ooh, he was nice. And we knew that he did that with Hollywood Brown. And then we found out that he did that with Zay. And he definitely did that with Odell Beckham. And he did that, we think, with DeAndre. Now that one we don't know as well because the Ravens didn't end up signing him, but that was kind of the report. So Spencer pointed out those four, plus he added Jerry Jeudy. Then he goes, well, Hopkins is the one that doesn't fit the twitchy separator profile, but I also wouldn't call him like this big, like the guys we've been talking about, like Keon Coleman or AD Mitchell or something like that, right? Then he says, Beckham is hard to categorize. He just says those two he feels like were more like proven vets. But coming out of the draft, and Jerry Jeudy isn't like this huge guy either, right? Not
and
like
D-Hop is 6'1", just for those who.
Right. So it's not like what we're talking about here with these bigger guys. So
Coleman and the majority of guys, sorry to cut you off, Coleman and the majority of those guys that we discussed earlier in the week are 6'3" and above.
Right. And so we've seen chemistry with these twitchy guys that get open, whether they've been physical or not, because Hollywood wasn't super physical, but he and Lamar had chemistry. Zay is a more physical brand, but still he and Lamar have chemistry. And he certainly has chemistry with his big tight ends, but there hasn't been like a wide receiver that it's just been like, ooh, yeah, one of those big dudes that we've been craving.
Yep.
That now, then again, he hasn't had a big chance to have one of those guys to even connect with them, right? Like Des Bryant coming in at the end of his career on the practice squad. I don't know that
he doesn't count.
It doesn't quite count. But it just from what we've seen, he seems to be good with these speedsters.
Yeah, this is until Spencer put this together. I mean, we were aware of this, but whether it's the South, two things pop out at you on this list. One, what we've been talking about, right, and two, the South Florida connection.
Definitely,
those things are and you know what? Like we learned a lot last year about the voice that Lamar has and the conversations that he has with the front office. Who's to say it's not happening again?
Right. And maybe I was going to say, maybe you could say that was a one-off because they were trying to sign him. And for sure, I feel like with how much they paid OBJ, you could certainly argue that.
Yep.
However, Hollywood Brown was not that situation. Lamar was still in the thick of his rookie contract. Right. So, yeah, I think Lamar has a big voice. And I think even since Todd Monken got in, it got even bigger, where they invited it more. Now in the past, Lamar has said himself, he didn't like being the one talking. He didn't feel like, he didn't like to be that person. So he himself has said that he talked more this year. And maybe it's because he feels like he is, he's established himself because he's always leading with respect and all that. So I think a combination of Todd Monken coming in and the fact that he feels more at ease to speak up, while I think he always had a voice, it seems to be bigger than it ever has been before.
Let's transition. They're better for it too, because of that. Let's transition to the running back position. We know that at some point, by way of either free agency, re-signing guys, or the draft,
Mhm.
The Ravens are going to have to do something because they only have 2 players in that room right now under contract for the 2024 season. So when Blake Corum, who is a national championship winning running back for the Michigan Wolverines, hit the podium this past weekend in Indianapolis at the Combine, Karita Parks, local reporter, caught video of him talking a little bit about what the fit could be playing for yet another Harbaugh.
Just because, I went to St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, so the Ravens isn't too far from East Chase Street, so it would be great. I best believe they're probably similar in ways, how all the, hardballs are, just great people, down to earth, good coaches, players, coaches. And so, if I got the chance to play for Coach John Harbaugh, that'd be great.
Do you remember during your time in Baltimore anything about St. Francis Academy? Did you have any run-ins? Did you do any research or stories on St. Francis Academy at all?
No, not
Okay.
personally.
Absolute powerhouse. Ridiculous powerhouse for football, basketball. I can't speak on any other sports, but I'm sure they have other sports there. And I'm saying this is fresh in my mind because he just said, Blake went there. But I went to the Baltimore Catholic League basketball tournament, high school hoops, this past weekend
Okay.
at Goucher College. They had a bunch of dogs on their team, St. Francis. It was unbelievable. So he is well represented not only by St. Francis, but of course as a Michigan Wolverine. Here are the measurables as you get to know a little bit about Blake Corum. Of course, that Michigan connection runs deep. His hometown is Marshall, Virginia. He is a 4-year senior, 5'8", 205. Arms were listed at 28 7/8 and 9-inch hands. So that's where the Blake Corum story comes in. Here's more analysis of his game, courtesy of Lance Zierlein. He's a compact runner with average size, outstanding contact balance, and a rare talent for finding and fitting into small crevices for short yardage conversions and touchdowns. Corum is a bit of a one-speed runner, lacking sizzle and wiggle, like that, but gets it downhill with timing and finishes runs with good forward lean. He has the hard hat mentality to handle heavy workloads and can exploit defenses that fatigue or miss their run fits. The talent doesn't stand out on its own, but he's strong, competitive, and team-oriented with exceptional football character. He can catch it when needed and is above average in picking up the blitz, which could earn him status as a 3-down backup with a chance to find early carries as an RB2 or 3, Sarah.
Okay, so the thing that sticks out to me the most, which was not read there, so he was definitely a bell cow for Michigan.
Whew, high volume.
High volume. And in 3 years, he put up 56 touchdowns. That is just insane production.
Dude's a beast.
That's somebody you definitely want on their rookie deal because who knows how much mileage he'll have left by the end of those 4 years, which is why the running back position is underpaid. So, you like all that. I do have to mention the Michigan to Ravens pipeline has not been great. The Jim Harbaugh to John Harbaugh.
Well, from a player standpoint, it's not been great.
from drafting guys from John drafting guys from Jim's program has not turned out to be great. And
plucking staff members has been good.
Yeah. They just kept going back and forth there. Maybe David Ojabo can change that narrative. Yeah. But he's got to get healthy, obviously, and then stay healthy. But there's been a few guys that this just been like highly touted by the Harbaughs and then just didn't take off here in Baltimore. So we'll see about that. But you like the story, right? Like local kid, high school, then going to Jim and then potentially coming back to John. So either way, I can't imagine the Ravens anybody going too high on any running backs.
Man,
I talked before how deep. I talked before about how deep like wide receiver is. Like there was 11 wide receivers in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. And then next was like offensive tackle, that was 8, and then corner at 7, and then QB and edge were 6. Like I didn't even make it down far enough to get to running backs. So it just goes to show you again how not deep it is. And then Mel Kiper, I just wanted to put out where Blake Corum kind of fits in his ranking of running backs.
Yep.
He's number 5. I'll just name the top 5. Jonathan Brooks from Texas, Trey Benson, who I'm going to also talks about the Ravens from the combine, so we'll get that in just a second. So Trey Benson from Florida State, transfer from Oregon, Audric Estime from Notre Dame, and Jalen Wright, Tennessee, and then Blake Corum rounds out the top 5. So Trey Benson was also asked about potentially playing with the Ravens, and here was his response.
What do you think about being the same backfield with Lamar Jackson?
Yes, I have talked to the Ravens, but being the same backfield with Lamar Jackson, it's crazy because, I watched him growing up when he was at Louisville, and just being in that, if I was in that backfield with him, then it'd be crazy. It'd be an honor. Truly a blessing, for sure.
What running back would not like to be in a backfield with Lamar Jackson?
Straight up.
Taking
Straight
him
up.
just a complete decoy. But Benson kind of measures similar to Breece Hall. Benson 6 foot, 216 pounds. Now he only got 6 touches in his first at Oregon. Then he decides to transfer over to FSU. And with Florida State, he averaged 6.1 yards per carry and had nearly 1,900 yards and 23 touchdowns over his 2 seasons there. So you go from having just 6 touches to like nearly 2,000 yards and 23 touchdowns. So he just wasn't being used. Plus, on top of that, he added 33 receptions for 371 yards and a touchdown. And he had a pretty good combine. He ran a 4.39 second 40-yard dash. I mean, it's no Xavier Worthy, but 4.39, which is 3rd in the class.
They're going to have to draft at least one running back. It's just going to be a matter of when, right? It's going to be a matter of when.
Well, or I would say I would, if I had to put money on it, I'd say they draft a running back. However, I do think there's a chance that if they were to go and get, say, a Derrick Henry, and then they went through the undrafted rookie kind of free agency, I could see that happening too.
Or maybe,
but there will be I will say that there will be a rookie for sure.
Yes. Yeah. You wonder if they do end up going after Derrick Henry, would there be enough left over to give JK that 1-year prove-it deal that so many of us expect that, well, it's going to be a matter of who gives it to him. Yeah. Right. Like, if somebody gives him a multi-year deal, you're crazy. Love you, JK, but that's just not good business based on, his availability marks. So we'll see how the Ravens choose to do that. Some quick hits?
Yep, let's do it.
So, man, this might go down. By the way, this extension that the Broncos awarded Russell Wilson a couple of years ago, Sarah, it hasn't kicked in yet. Like the 2 years he played in Denver were on a pre-existing deal. So now Denver announced that they're releasing Russ on Monday. They're going to take on an NFL record $85 million in dead money.
That is bad.
And that's more than the last 2 dead money records combined. That is not the record you want to be in.
255?
255.4, I think.
All right. Well, let me just do a little math. How much of their cap? 250.
Holy.
85 divided by 255. This is 33% of their cap.
Wow.
A third of the cap for a guy that's not even going to be on the roster.
Let me tell you. I have one reaction and one reaction only. Sean Payton better have been right.
Oh.
This was unquestionably his decision as the head coach, you would think.
Because they were like, there's that whole background, right? Of basically benching him until he would give in by waiving an injury clause, and he wouldn't do it. And some people speculate that Sean Payton, because there was a couple times Sean Payton just was reaming into him on the sideline, and he just kept his cool. And it was like, was he trying to get him to like somehow ruin his own contract by fighting back, or who knows what? But like, what is going on with the management in Denver? A third of your cap?
Unreal.
Where do you get your motivation unless by some miracle? If you're a player on that team and you got to go play day in and day out and be like, we're not even using a third of our cap on people that are here. Like, you're telling me for $85 million you couldn't find a way to make it work with Russell Wilson?
Yep. It has been brutal sledding since Peyton Manning retired in Denver. Brutal since Peyton retired. The only way to positively spin this is that Denver now avoids an extra $37 million fully guaranteed. That's the only way. But again, we just labeled the
They're just
dead
like
money.
biting the bullet.
Yeah. There is no way to spin it positively when you hear the dead cap number. I mean, seriously? So we'll see where he lands. Could it be Atlanta? Could it be Pittsburgh if they don't feel like Kenny Pickett's the guy? Could it be Tennessee? I am very, very curious to see where he ends up. Could it be Vegas? I don't know.
Well, I'll just say this. I kind of hope it's in the NFC, and I hope he balls out.
Well,
I would just love that. All right. In other quick hits NFL news, the Chiefs officially placed the franchise tag on cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. Okay. So thinking kind of through that takes away the tag for Chris Jones. Now, they could still potentially sign him long-term before free agency opens, but they can't use the tag on that. Mm-hmm. The official price tag for Sneed is $19.8 million. And as at my sports update says here, there's still a chance that they could maybe trade him for on a long-term deal and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you can't let cornerbacks like that hit the market. So I'm sure they had to do it. But now they still got to figure out Jones, and then still figure out, either a long-term deal with him or to trade him. But I will say this, like, this is exactly this feels like a Baltimore type situation where the Chiefs have spent so much on their quarterback position that they've been having to hit in the draft. And they did with Sneed and Jones. And now it's like, shoot, we can't pay for all of them. So how are we going to figure this out? So I'm really curious to see how KC kind of maneuvers all these great players that they drafted, but have a ton of money already tied up with their quarterback, who's absolutely.
It's going to be tough. As team friendly as that deal was, extending it over 10 years from Mahomes, still comes with some consequences when you got a franchise QB. That's just life in the NFL. Jason Kelce has called it a career, and he officially did so in an unbelievably moving, powerful, I watched every single minute, press conference on Monday. 13 NFL seasons. Most folks feel that he is the best center of all time in the game. The reactions around the league, Russell Wilson, Cam Jordan, Troy Aikman, Tyreek Hill, J.J. Watt, Julian Edelman, Darius Slay, certainly back that up. That was just a few. Everybody who's somebody in the NFL saluted this guy because he did it the right way. I loved watching him from afar. He just is somebody who is authentic, right? He's unapologetically him. And I just love guys like that. Here's part of his speech.
And so this all brings us here to today, where I announce that I am retiring. Where I announce I'm retiring from the NFL after 13 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. And today, I must admit, I am officially overrated. Vastly overrated. But fuck, it took a lot of hard work and determination getting here.
Oh, Bobby, there is something about when grown men cry that, like, hits me every single time. I hate watching grown men cry. I hate it. It makes me emotional. So there's also something about like he had to choke through the word retirement. And obviously he's been thinking about it for a while, but there's something about saying it out loud, or like when we have to face something that we don't want to do and it's been in the back of our minds, but we're kind of ignoring it and pushing it back there. And then when we actually speak it, it's just like, holy crap, this is real.
Yeah.
And I've seen this so many times in guys' retirements. It's like, it's especially when you are the best of the best and you are like just an incredible athlete and all you've done your whole life is sacrifice for this game. And it literally takes everything out of you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. And then to like say goodbye at such young ages in their 30s. It's a tough pill to swallow. And every single time I listen to a retirement speech like that, it's all that way when they first announce it. And it's just like they have to look it in the eye, and they didn't ever want to.
Right. He's 36 now. Like he's 36 and in real life, it's like so much is ahead.
Yeah.
So much is ahead and like facing that head on can be incredibly challenging when, to your point, your entire life prior has all been dedicated to your craft. And my, oh my, was his craft something else. From a 6th round pick, 6th rounder in 2011 to a Super Bowl champion, 6-time first team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, and somebody who I'm sure is going to have one heck of a next career. If he wants media, it's there. Okay. Just look at all the reports.
He's already got his
networks.
own podcast. So he's ahead of the game.
The podcast is unbelievably popular, but I'm talking about from like a major network standpoint. They're all lining up for him. They're all lining up. So congratulations to Jason on a 13-year career in Philadelphia. This right here, as I rock my
Orioles, there you go.
March 28th is opening day. So what are we coming up on 3 weeks? Looking forward to that. David Rubenstein, the new Orioles ownership, leading the Orioles ownership group into this new era, is, you know what, Sarah? He really understands. I think he's got a great grasp what's so desperately needed right now in Baltimore with this club, and that's connectivity, engagement, and visibility. Here he is. He's tweeting out photos of him with an imaginary baseball bat in his hands, walking through Camden Yards. He met with business leaders on Monday, and he tweeted, Orioles fans, a few more photos. There's nothing like walking through the tunnel and then seeing the majestic stadium, plus me swinging for the fences. And I know this feels like it's a breath of fresh air, and I think I can speak for the fan base when I say that, because the Angelos era has not been fun. He's been invisible in a lot of ways when it comes to the connectivity part that you're really it's required of you when you're the face of a club. And I think he understands that he's got to tap into that. He's doing a great job so far.
New hope for Orioles. They were already headed in a good direction based off of last year and the performances on the field, and now new ownership. It's like, just keep bringing it on. Keep bringing it on.
Let's go. March 28th. Baseball's back in Baltimore. So, and it's been feeling like it too. I don't know what's going out there in Columbus, but it is beautiful here this week so far.
Oh, it's
60
here.
degrees.
Yeah. It's like one of those days where like people you haven't seen people outside, and then there's like millions of people out walking their dog and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, that I moved into my place, late in the season during January when nobody's out. The last 48 hours, I've been like, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Exactly.
Hey, this is who I am. Nice to meet you. I haven't seen
from
you."
Hibernation.
Goodness gracious. So, anyway, we want to shout out and thank two of our returning patrons who are supporting what we're building here in Baltimore this month, and we appreciate them. Greg McCarthy, Chris B., thank you both for believing in what we're building. And if you guys are interested in doing the same, visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast, which can be found in the show notes below to figure out more. And Yeah, I guess later today we'll have our 4 p.m. Eastern deadline for the franchise tag window designation. So be on the lookout for content related to how the Ravens want to handle Justin Madubuike's current free agency situation, and I'm sure much more as we get ready for legal tampering window and the actual new league year, which begins next week. So for my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday Morning Vault. If you enjoyed this specific piece of content, please like the video, subscribe to the Vault if you haven't already done so, right here on YouTube and also in the audio-only spaces. Thanks, guys.